Good afternoon, y'all. We're in Genesis 31. Okay. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. Okay, now, this is Jacob talking. This is Jacob hearing this. Okay, so, already, guys, pause for a second. We got envy right here. And this is a larger picture of something else, an image. I'm trying to put it together. Alright, so verse 2. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. Okay, so guys, the Lord is telling Jacob to go back home. Okay. Okay, verse 4. 31, verse 4. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock. Okay. And said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the Lord God of my father hath been with me. Alright, so I said before that it looked like a Jew Gentile picture, or a Jew world picture. So this almost looks like, so far, that a picture of the coming home to the kingdom of heaven, a going to the kingdom type of deal. Okay, we're going to keep going. Verse 5. So, and ye know that with all my power I have served your father. Okay. And your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. Okay. If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. Okay, let's slide up here to verse 8, because that's going on 31. Alright, if he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, all the flock bore striped. Thus God, verse 9, thus God has taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. So guys, so basically to me, guys, that's a picture of, if you're on the wrong side of God, you're basically cursed. Everything that you want to happen is going to come crashing down. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, if you're on the wrong end of the Lord, your best thinking is not even going to work. Even the most cleverly designed plan is not going to work, because that's what happened to Laban against the blessed man of Jacob. There's nothing can oppose the plan of God. That's just the way that works. And that's just the way that works. So that's important to take away from that, guys. Now, and it came to pass at that time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. Now there's a lot going on here, okay? And the angel of God spoke unto me. Let's slide up on verse 10 on that. Okay, in breeding season, verse 10. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that mated with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Okay. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up your eyes and see, all the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land. Okay, let me slide back down. I only go up there for clarity if I need it, to the English Standard, but we like to read out of King James 31:13. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointedst. I like that. Where the God, where you, 13. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointedst the pillar, and where thou vowedst a vow to me. Anointedst. Okay. Where thou anointedst the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. Yeah, there is a ton going on here, and I don't want to address too much right this second, but yeah, we're definitely going to do some serious recapping on this, I think. Now, for all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's now. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. So they're basically saying, okay, Jacob, we were sold to you, or you worked for us, now we belong to you. And this is basically a Christ picture because of what happened on the cross, because of the work he did on the cross. You know, that takes care of everything. That everything that we had doesn't matter. It's all gone now. That's to me what I'm getting out of this. So they're basically saying, hey, we ain't got no choice now, because we have nothing back there. That's nothing. It's all gone now. What was ours has been transformed. Now it's yours through God. So that's what I'm getting out of that. It's a Christ picture. They basically said, of our father's house, we have nothing there anymore. For one, he's in poverty basically compared to you. It's if you can't beat him, join him type of deal. You know, he's about to leave, and you know, this is just an illustration that they're making. So, For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours. That is ours. And you know, we were bought. And that's just scriptural. We were bought. We were bought with the blood of Christ. So it's kind of like a lot of reverse images and principles going on here. And that's kind of important that it, you know, okay. So whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. And that's important because of what happened on the cross. It says right here, let me check 16. Because of all that, the message is whatever God has said to you. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. That's New Testament. That's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Because of everything on the cross, everything that took place with the cross, you've been bought. The bride is Jacob. The bride is the Christ. Now that all that's taken place, it's not disputable. It's done. It's finished. So now then, whatever God has said to you, do. Okay? I mean, that's just basic preaching that you're hearing here. Basic, I'm giving you the raw meaning right there. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. Because of all of these radical things that have transpired, you know, all things are new. We see that the devil's own stuff has been used against him. He's cursed. It is a dying breed. He is headed to prison. Okay, that's all you can do. It is a dying breed. You know, that's what's going on. It is a dying breed. He is headed to prison. He's been sentenced. He's on his way. You know, we already know what's going to happen to the devil. He's going to be cast into prison for 1,000 years. However long that is in actual God time, I don't know. But all I know is that his end is destruction. He will be no more. Whatever that means. He'll be no more have any control. He'll be tormented and forever and destroyed in the lake of fire with all of his people. Okay, so, yeah. So Jacob arose, verse 17. Because that is an image of them saying, hey, it says, all the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Are we not regarded to him as foreigners? Yeah, there's a lot of principles going on here because that's what's going on. You know, we're foreigners, you know. For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. And that's an image of, you know, what's going on with us in our lives. Our value has been devoured, you know, by the powers of darkness. And he has sold us, verse 15. Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. So, you know, and that's an image of what happens when we are in that fallen state. There's a phrase, sold unto sin. And to understand that is a deep, very deep concept. but being sold under sin and bought with the blood of Christ. Well, you might say, how are we sold under sin? Don't ask me. All I know is that we were bought. And that's talking God's language right there. We know the value of souls and all that. But there's other stuff going on that we don't know about behind the scenes. That is for the higher initiations. About the value of the soul and all that. So we are very valuable. We have infinite value as souls. Okay. And that's part of the realization of knowing what Christ did and everything. And until you really try to understand that, it's hard to fully understand the impact of the Christ and why that happened. Because you don't even value yourself. Okay. But you don't understand the value of God and His infiniteness and His infinite love and His infiniteness. If that's even a word. Infiniteness. I don't think that's a word, but yeah. When you understand infinite value in God and all that, you understand how we were bought and sold under sin, whatever that means. I mean, I'm just saying you gotta really reach deep and understand the value of God and you being God's child, and then you'll know. You kind of like starts to dawn on you about this value, about how we become strangers and foreigners, and our money's been devoured and everything. That's what they're talking about. So all this is just an image of God and the world and stuff like that, and the Jews and the Gentiles and the devil and our fallen state. Because, like I said, guys, God is very simple. You're either in the Christ or you're not. And yeah, the guidelines you have to sometimes, in a lot of cases, you have to basically lose yourself and drop everything that you identify with, your addictions, your pride, your ideology. You basically have to change. The world is in such a state that it can be very hard to become part of this criteria. You know, because of the way the world is and the way we grow up and our characters and our ideology and our egos and everything like that, it can seem very hard, and it can be daunting to meet the criteria. Not that it's hard, it's what we already are, that we had to get rid of all that stuff to meet the criteria. That's why we have these instructions. That's why we have the Christ. That's why we have preaching. That's why we have the New Testament. That's why we have Paul. Okay? That's why we have James and John and Peter. That's why we have all that. So that we can say, hey, you know, the first step is realization. Okay? Recognizing, okay, this is true. Acknowledgement, this is true. Realization, okay, it's true. Acknowledgement, willingness. Okay, obedience, following instructions. Wisdom, understanding, knowing what you got to do, following these instructions. That's how you're going to get there. But it can be a lot, and I don't know how I got off on that, but this stuff has to be understood in order for the world ideology that doesn't match up with this. It's becoming more and more distant at times. This stuff, you know, and I'm not saying that people don't have it. I'm just saying a lot of people are leaning away from it, and that's what these videos are being made for. Okay, or the messages become watered down. It's become very selective. It's cherry picking. Okay. The message has become watered down. It is becomes superficial. All right, there's a lot of stuff, yeah, okay, that isn't being followed. There's a lot of stuff, and I'm one of those people too that just are not getting it all the way right. And that's what we have the Christ for, because we're not perfect. I'm not saying we can't be. I'm just saying. All right, now, where was I? All right, now, are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us. That's definitely God and sin. It's already been quoted, said that we're sold unto sin. Now that's a tough one, man. Like I said, I don't know the full meaning behind that, but it's something to do with our value, and it's something to do with some higher level understanding. Like I said, the message is not really out there, guys. The understanding of the world and where we stand and the actual full implication is not really out there at all. At all. Yeah, we know about fire and brimstone. Yeah, we know about heaven and hell. Yeah, we know about sin. But to actually understand that and what that means against where we actually are, the message is not out there, guys. Really, that's why I have this channel. Okay? That's why I have this channel. To bring you the message. Okay? So, and the only reason I bring up the sold under sin thing is because that's the actual Bible. That's Bible talk right there. We were sold under sin. So I don't know what that actually means, but I know there's something there. It's something to do. It's something to escape from in the Christ. When the Christ is involved, you're bought back. That's the important part, okay? Yeah, you were sold under sin, whatever that means. But guess what? You're bought back with the blood of Christ. Provided that you're meeting the criteria. Okay, so I'm not just going to tell you I don't know what sin means. That's a dark alley. Okay, but we're bought back through the blood of Christ. So I can tell you that much. So all I can tell you is if you want to know what that means, just keep pushing on. You'll find out about the sold under sin thing. And you'll really find out what that means. Okay, keep on pushing. So yeah, we were bought back with the blood of Christ, y'all. That's what the other side of that sold under sin coin. We're bought back with the blood of Christ. We are redeemed. We are redeemed. Okay. It's almost like a refinance for the house, a refinance mortgage. So we had to pay Christ paid the interest. He paid everything that had to be paid. And that's it. We are free now as children that we were supposed to be. And, there's more to it than that, but that's pretty much a nutshell picture of where we stand. Alright, so, and I say all that to say, guys, that the world is going about their business. A lot of people are like, we don't have to be those people. If you're watching this channel, guys, and the world is going about their business in a manner that isn't supporting this, yeah, they're out there. I mean, we don't have to be one of those people, okay, that are not living by the book. We can meet the criteria. We can be those 1 in 100. Well, however many people make it to the Lamb's Book of Life. Like I said, if I had to guess, I'd probably say it was less than 1% of the world going. If I had to guess. Who knows? Could be more, could be less than that. I've heard the term before, 1% or whatever that means. But if I had to guess, I would probably say that less than 1% is going to go to the Lamb's Book of Life. If I had to guess. So, whatever the percentage is, we don't have to be those people. We can make a choice and be the people that are getting it right. Okay, so. Alright, so. Now, moving on. Kind of sidetracked today, y'all, but I just. Basic fundamental things, to me, they always need to be expressed. We're not just reading the Bible here. Anything that stands out, that's where we're going, down that rabbit hole, to a certain extent. And by the way, guys, I looked up those mandrakes things some more, and yeah, that's a rabbit hole, man. There's witchcraft, all kind of stuff, love potions, they put it in, they're supposed to make you make you fertile, hallucinating, they're getting high off of it, gods had it in their gardens, all kind of stuff. So I'm not going down that road, because you know why? All that stuff points toward the supernatural, and that God, there is supernatural. We're not just in a world where we are in a goons and goblins type of scenario. Demons, angels, goons, and goblins. That's where we're at, y'all. Okay, and we can be subject to all those things. Terrible things. So, there is some goons and goblin stuff out there, guys. Demons, evil, witchcraft, all kind of stuff can go on, y'all. If you don't believe me, go look up the mandrake thing. Go look it up. Sorcery. All that stuff is real, man. And, so I don't go down that rabbit hole because of that. To me, that's saying, whoa, okay, supernatural is real. God is real. That's not him. Those are things opposing him. But he's there above all that stuff. He is there above all that stuff. So, God has warned us to stay away from that kind of stuff. Of sorcery and witchcraft and stuff like that. So, and that's exactly what those things are, those mandrakes. And, so, drugs, all that stuff is the same thing, a false sense of power. When you're going against God and the Christ, look at Laban. He had the edge. He was behind the scenes. He was pulling strings. Guess what? It didn't work out. It didn't work out for him. It didn't work out. Logically. Logic doesn't work out. He can part a Red Sea. He can raise Christ from the dead. He can heal withered limbs. He can give sight to the blind. You name it, God can do it. So basic logic does not work when God's involved. Okay? Basic logic does not work when God's involved. He defies all laws of cause and effect. All laws of all universal laws God is knocking down when he feels like it. So take or leave it, man. All right. And Jacob rose up and set his sons. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels. And he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Padana Ram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of the Canaan. Okay. Okay, and Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Okay. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, and that he told him not that he had fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward the mount of Gilead. Now, guys, this is another image right here. That you can't just, in certain situations, y'all, especially with Satan and stuff, some people they're not just going to do right. You can't just say, hey, I'm leaving, and wish you well, this and that. He just got up and left because he knew that it wasn't going to end well. Laban had deceived him many different occasions, and used his honorableness against him and his uprightness. So in certain situations, like Jacob, you can't do right by these people. You just have to, in certain situations, you just have to, you just have to get on their level and just, they're going to lie to you all the time. Sometimes you just have to lie back. I'm not saying you have to, but it's just common sense, y'all. Like, in certain levels, you can't be nice to some people. They're always they're never gonna do you right. If it's in their power, you're gonna be hurt. That's just the way it works. And I'm trying to come up with a better example, but I used an example the other day. But okay, so yeah, Jacob knows that Laban is not just gonna let him walk away. Hello? Alright. So, yeah. He knows that Laban is not going to let him walk away. And so Jacob rose and set his sons on his camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods. And that's kind of like, and I brought that up because that's an image of the devil in the Christ. If I'm not mistaken, if my theology is correct, y'all, Satan was completely unaware that that was going to be what happened, with the Christ. If Satan was involved in the Christ being killed, I'm sure he was. He was unaware at that point that was going to happen, and that was going to be the death of death. That was going to be, the battle was won at that point. And Christ went down to hell, snatched the keys of death, and Satan was unaware. He was caught by surprise, if my theology was correct. And Christ rose from the dead. All that Satan had no control over. He was caught by surprise. He was, if I'm not mistaken, his best efforts had been used against him, and he just had, and that's what Christ did. It's not like God said, hey, we're about to come down and do this. He just did it. And that's what I think, and that's just my theology, but it's classic warfare, like a chess game. You're not telling your opponent what you're going to do, you're just doing it. And this is classic tactics. You know what's going on here. You know, Jacob left. He knew there wasn't going to be no positive separation. Laban was going to come up with another scheme. He wasn't going to go for it. He was going to say, hey, there's going to be some bad blood going on right there. So he just left. And took the cattle they had agreed upon. So without reading too much into that, because I'm way off track, but so Jacob stole away unawares to Laban. And that's the main point on that. Like I said, he just took off. He didn't say, hey, I'm finally leaving. And that's an illustration that, you know, in certain situations, like I was trying to say earlier, you can't just do right to some people. You know, you just got to up and leave. And that's the way it is with our addictions and our lifestyles. There is no way to separate nicely. You just have to stop. Hey, guys, you know, you can't be like, hey, guys, you know, this really isn't for me. This and that. Let me tell you about what's going on. You just have to stop going around those people, period. They're not going to, there is no easy separation from that. You just have to stop. And that's with addictions, gambling, friends, lifestyles. There is no easy separation from that. You know what you're supposed to do? Separate yourself. There is no easy separation from that stuff. Other than just go. And run as fast as you can and don't go back. Period. So that's what I get from that he stole away. And the image from that is that you can't always, you know, like I said. So, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban and Seir the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river. Okay, and it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. 31:23. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Okay. Now to me, guys, this is almost an image of, you know, Satan is trying to get us now that the Christ has come. Like a drowning swimmer, he's trying to pull us down too. So yeah, the battle's been won. We need to make sure we're leaving the battlefield and we're getting out of there. Okay, let's not hang around and just sit around all this death and all that. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go back home. You know, and that's part of the thing that, you know, that's, to me, that's an image of Satan trying to get us now. That, you know, the battle's been won. He took off. The riches are his. He's wealthy. We're in the Christ. We're leaving. It's just me saying this. This is what I'm getting out of this. He's basically saying, he said, speak not unto Jacob either good or bad. So that's basically telling you that that the devil has no power over you. It's just an illusion at this point. It's an act. You don't have to. He's saying it's within your power. You know, Laban's going to pull up, but he can't really do anything. You know, and that's what the devil is trying to do to us is use our own choices against us. He's basically powerless. He's not powerless, but we are not powerless. We have choices. So I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah, Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched on the mountain of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Wherefore did thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me? And with songs, with tabret, and with harp. So basically, here you have the classic. This is definitely to me a Satan picture, because he's not going to go quietly. You just have to smite him, and because he's not going to do right. And here you have the lies of, I would have sent you away in celebration. Well, if that's the case, why are you hunting me down like this? So, and to me, this is also an image of us being saved, because in a way that Jacob pulled off in secret. He really didn't do nothing wrong. He knew it wasn't going to end well, even though he wasn't doing anything wrong. He knew that Satan had power too. Satan had power over the world. And all that. So, but even now, you can hear him saying, "Hey, blah, 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 blah. I'm just angry. I'm jealous. I'm envious. There's no way you're going to take all my power from me like this." That's basically what Satan is saying. There is no way that you're going to do this to me. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Because that's just the way it works. But this is just a classic Satan picture. There's no way you're going to take everything from me like this. It was never yours. So this is just a classic tyrant. He's been deceiving since day one. He's been lying. He's been saying good things. But all along, it's been bad stuff. But God told him to get out of there. That's what he's doing with the Christ. Get out of there. So, yeah, pushing on. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done? Thou hast stolen away unawares. Okay. Where didst thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, with tabret, and with harp, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters, that thou hast not done foolishly in so doing? Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spoke unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed, that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now to me, guys, that's an image of it's all in our hands. The devil can do a lot. He can't lay a finger on you, but he can lead you down some paths. He can throw stuff in your way. He can try to convince you. He can all this stuff. But it's in your hands. That's basically what he's saying, and that's what he told Job. He told the devil when he said. The devil said, Have you considered, or God said, Have you considered my faithful servant Job? And he said, Don't lay a finger on him. Test him. But don't lay a finger on him. Because the devil said, Oh, he will not acknowledge you. He will blaspheme you or something. He will not give you your dueness. And that's basically all it takes. At the end of the day, it's about acknowledgement, submission, giving glory, worship. That's what it's about at the end of the day. Everything else comes after that. So much like Job, yeah, okay. Okay, so you know all the ways. This is a classic case of, to me, guys, that you know the devil's always going to have his side of the story. Oh, God's not doing it right. I can do it better. These people, they don't deserve his love. And in a way, he's right. But guess what? There's another side of the coin, and that's God's story. So the devil's going to tell half truths. You know, he's going to be saying stuff that sounds real good, and he's not always wrong. But guess what? There's two sides to every coin. And God's opinion is real too. God's saying, hey, I'm the boss. You know, I hear what you're saying. You're right. But guess what? You're not the boss. Okay, so, you know, devil's always going to have his story. He's always going to have his side of the story, how God is not doing things right. He wants the power. He wants to do things his way. He has pride and all that, and envy, and you know, whatever it is driving him, or you know, whatever it is doing all that, he's always going to be behind his guns. So he's never going to be, and you know, it's hard to understand that unless you understand that it's not always, it's hard to explain about that, about the time frame. You know, you would think that after all this, the devil would have a change of heart. But we don't exist in that same time frame. That is something that, you know, one moment up there that happened could be existing the entire time that we... It's hard to explain about that, how that works, but it's basically not that it happened and continue happening, it's that it happened, period. And I hope I'm not getting too far off track with that, but... So, to understand why the devil has a constant position is it's kind of hard to explain, but it's more along the absoluteness of God and being in the position he was in. There's really not a time to be coming back and forth with his actions. You know, when he acted, you know, whatever position he took, that was it. You know, that was it. So, but one of my higher understandings is that he was supposed to do that so that we could become more. It's hard to explain, but God's in full control. You can trust that. And that's supposed to be you too. You're supposed to be part of that. So, been kind of a rough day, y'all, with all this stuff. But I'm trying to give you the breakdown as we're going. We didn't do a lot today with this. We stopped today at in 31:29. Okay. And this wasn't one of our best videos, y'all. I don't think. I'll have to go back and look, but it's just a lot going on here with stuff, you know. It's starting to get to the point in our study where we really have to cover and go back. And we will. We're out of time today, but just basic fundamental stuff, doing what God says, knowing when you can't, knowing when to bail out and go, and that's with the Christ. You know, we're bailing out of our old situation. There is no way to reconcile what happened. There is no way to mix with the world. There's no oil and water do not mix. There is no reconciling sin in Christ. They do not mix. Okay, and that's what's going on here. Jacob took off and left because there was going to be no easy way. There was going to be no part. Either Laban was going to kill him or something along them lines. You know, God said take off and go. He went, using his best judgment. Okay, and that's just a picture of me of the world in the Christ. There is no reconciliation. You know, the devil's always going to have his story. There is no right way to do this. There is no easy way to part. First, they do not mix. It says in the New Testament, what place do the sinners have with the godly? There is no place. You know, there is no reconciliation for this kind of stuff. So, and that's an important point to draw away from this, is understanding that there is no mixing, there is no compromise. Sin is not going to give you any mercy. It's not. It's going to see you separated from God, and it's going to hide the truth every chance it can. It's never going to do right. It has no sympathy for you. There is no. It's simply, there's value there. There's value, and if you're in the way, you're going to get hit. You're down. If you have something to value, there is going to be no reasoning around it. No. There is no compromise there. You have to get up and go where you have a chance to. And that's an image of the Christ and how valuable that is. Okay? So, I feel like I didn't have a good message. But guys, we're on YouTube at Preach Facts. Alright? So, we're plugging along. I'll see you tomorrow. But I think we did good with the message extraction. Okay, so guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.